Welcome to Marketing Mixologists, the podcast that brings together marketing and mixology for an exciting journey into modern-day marketing.
We think marketing should be like your favorite cocktail, fully balanced, flavorful, and memorable.
We'll explore all things related to marketing, from understanding the basics to uncovering advanced strategies.
With special guests joining us each episode, we'll share insights from experts in the field and share our favorite drinks.
Whether you like it shaken or stirred, grab your favorite beverage and join us as we learn more about how powerful marketing can be when mixed well. Cheers!
So in this week's episode, we are covering women in sales, particularly surrounding motivation and sales and marketing alignment. So today we are mixing with Jill Bruno. She's the Sales Development Manager at Rocket Reach. So thank you for joining us. And do you want to tell us a bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for this conversation. So as you mentioned, I am the SDR leader over at Rocket Reach. So I've had a really great opportunity here to strategically build out our inbound team and our outbound team with a focus on data, motivation, and everything we're going to talk about today. So again, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. We're so excited to have you too. So I guess first thing we kind of just wanted to talk about is being a woman in sales. Obviously, I come from an industry that originally had more of like a male-dominated focus. So more about what is it like being a woman in sales? Like, how do you overcome challenges that are biased? Kind of what's your experience in working in sales as a woman?
Yeah, so it has a lot of pros and it has a lot of cons. I think that we've come a long way supporting women in sales, but we are still outnumbered by men. So there are a lot of challenges that come with that. I've had scenarios, even speaking years back when I was an SDR myself, where men would speak down to me. They had the audacity to tell me I was not as good as them. I would never be at their level. And I just felt that it was, okay, a man who's 6'5" speaking down to me at 5'3", it was just intimidating. And I also never knew how to stand up for myself because I was like, oh, like, the account executive and all the managers who are men, like, I guess I don't compare. And that's really how it was 10 years ago. It was men, they're running the show. And there's a lot of challenges if I look at it from the perspective now, fast forward 10 years, because I'm a mom. The challenges that you go through if you're pregnant, if you're expecting, if you're about to go on maternity leave, there's so many things that people don't realize. That's something we have to talk about. We need to bring this to light now because there's so much guilt that comes with being a mother in sales and even, again, a woman in sales. So another example to throw out is when I was an early manager, in my head, I would always second guess what I was saying because was I going to sound like the B word? Are people going to think I'm being rude? No, I could be assertive and direct, but that doesn't mean I am being rude. So I really had to refocus on what I'm saying and how I feel people are perceiving it because there was a lot of, again, intimidation and just second guessing, which I don't think men ever are doing, but women do constantly.
Constantly. I feel like, especially when you're dealing with someone that might not know you or they're in, the tech and let's say, for example, my background, which is a lot of automotive, it tends to be more male focused. So I feel like having that little voice in the back of your head being like, okay, is this going to sound dumb? When, you have the education, you have the experience, you have the same background, but I feel like we definitely have that ingrained little, is this going to sound silly? Is this going to sound dumb? And it's a hard thing to overcome.
Absolutely, especially, automotive. I worked for a company where the target market, they were pest control professionals. And I use the word professional very lightly here, but it was such a male-dominated ICP. The company was male-dominated. And that's where I felt at that time, I really struggled to find mentorship because when I looked through the leader table, I was the only woman. So I couldn't relate to anybody without trying to find somebody externally. But then I also lose that sense of, oh, you actually understand because you sat at that table with me. And that's something that I've actually had to be very, very proactive in my career of what women can I find to speak with about the challenges that I'm specifically facing today, because sometimes I want advice and sometimes I just need to yell. I need a shoulder to cry on, somebody to celebrate with, so many different emotions. And it was really hard. And that's where, looking at where I am now, I value Rocket Reach so much because I can very proudly sit here and say every single sales manager is a woman. And this is the first time in my 10-year SDR career I could ever say it's all women. and it's amazing. And the dynamic is different too. We just click differently than my experience when it's all men.
It's definitely a different vibe, and it's definitely easier to second guess yourself, easier to feel like you have to kind of, I guess, like align yourself with, if you're having personal life challenges or you're having professional challenges, you feel more like you have to align yourself with the same challenges that the men are having, instead of celebrating the unique challenges that we have as women, like, you know, having to be a mom and work at the same time. It's a huge job, but we don't talk about it because we're like, oh, this is a separate challenge than what men can be facing. So it's definitely like celebrating those wins, celebrating working with other women, and sharing those, you know, pluses and minuses being women in any industry. It can, finding those things to relate together, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, rather than trying to pretend they don't exist.
Absolutely. And that's where, let's talk about imposter syndrome for a second. I think everybody experiences it from time to time. I know I do. I know some people on my team do. And I know some of even my mentors do at times. I think it's very normal, but I would guarantee men do not have the imposter syndrome that women do.
No
because and I, again, from my own experience, if I have a fantastic day, I'm like, I could do anything. But then sometimes if things don't go well, I'm like, oh, shoot, like, should I be here? And I shouldn't do that. I know I am here for a reason, and there's no reason to second guess myself, but it's just part of the alignment that's been built with women in sales, because men don't share that. They don't talk about it. And there's a statistic I love, which is, not that I love, I hate the numbers, but it speaks to this, where before you apply to a job or a promotion, if a woman is to look at that job description, they will look and say, okay, I need to do every single thing. I have to fit this 100% to be worthy enough to apply. Whereas a man, if they're at least 60% of those requirements, they're going to apply. And I think that falls again into that imposter syndrome of, oh, I can't do that. You probably can. Just apply. What's the worst that happens? You don't get it? That's fine. But what's the corny saying? You miss every shot you don't take.
Yeah.
We're not taking the shots because we let our imposter syndrome kick in, and men are getting our jobs.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I know for myself in the past, if it was like, let's say 5 years experience in one industry, I'm like, oh, but I only have 4.5. Like,
I know, like, I only have 4 years and 10 months. I can't apply.
It's like, but like, look at that wealth of experience you have. You're not like, you don't have anything less. You also might have some crazy good areas in other places that that men might not even have, or a certain applicant who's a man might not have. But you're not even going to bring it to the table because it doesn't fit within these lines.
Yeah.
Definitely, I think we definitely have this deep-seated need to like be perfect, and for sure.
We're definitely hard on ourselves. And even when I was thinking about this conversation, something that I think that women stress out way more than men is, what do we look like? Even today, I'm like, I have to record. Let me make sure my hair is straightened and I put my eyeliner on. Like a man probably rolls out of bed and they're in their pajama bottoms. They're like, all right, I showed up. What are we talking about? Or I'm like, no, let me look cute. Let me make sure I look presentable. And I know men don't stress about camera readiness the way we do, but that's just, I think, part of being a woman is we just put so much pressure on our performance, our looks, how we're interpreted. And men just fly by the edge of their seat and get away with it without the stress and internal battles.
Definitely. And I feel like there's definitely like disadvantages in that too, when we feel like that pressure on ourselves, but then it's also kind of a win to like, we look more presentable. Not always.
We look great.
Plenty of men put effort in and plenty of women don't. But
yeah, no, you're correct.
It leads me to also asking about, what do you think some of like, for women particularly, what do you think are some unique strengths for women working in the sales industry? So again,
not to say everybody's the same or different based on gender here, but I have found that, you know, when you're a woman, especially if you're a mother or, you know, you're very close to your family, that's going to bring out a very nurturing motherly side. So I think that women are very good at asking some of the questions behind the question, meaning I know if somebody on my team, they seem like they're having a really off day, or even just one of my colleagues, my first question is everything okay? How are you? You know, is something going on? I just want you to know I'm here for you if you need to chat. Whereas, you know, people who aren't paying attention to some of those nonverbals, they might not even realize somebody's being a little bit off And you just have to get to that, again, the question behind the question of like, what's going on? It doesn't even need to be work related, but I am here for you. So just some of that compassion that, again, I just think women notice a lot of the small details. But that's one difference I would say. And again, I'm not saying that men can't do it. I just think that women do it a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree with you there for sure.
Jill, sales is hard. Okay, I don't know if you know this, but when I first started here at Uncommon, I came in as like an MDR, right? And over the last almost 2 years, Stacy and I have really learned that that's not really my strong suit. I try, but it is hard. Sales is difficult. So one thing definitely is motivation, right? So can you give me what you think is the importance of motivation in sales and how it impacts a salesperson's performance?
Yes. So this is something I am so intentional about, because motivating isn't just saying you'll win $100 for this or throwing some type of incentive or a prize. I think that's what gets lost pretty often, is people think throwing prizes, money, that's the way to motivate. It's not. Can that work sometimes? Of course, if you have a spiff, yeah, that'll be motivating, but you have to understand your people. There is no way that you can motivate a team of individuals if you don't understand their values, what career development that they seek, how do they learn, what are things that they enjoy doing, and also what are things that they don't enjoy doing, and whatever they'd like to share about their personal life. But what's going on? Are they planning for a wedding? Do they have a baby that they're expecting? Whatever is going on, that's where you can connect on such a deep level to truly understand, why is somebody here? You need to understand your why and then understand your team's why. Because if you can speak to what's actually motivating them, it's not always time, it's not always money. That's what we always think it is, but it could be so much more that we just are overseeing because we're not taking those moments to truly say, how are you? Who are you? And it's just having that, again, that real conversation and treating people like people. I'll admit, I have completely lost one-on-one time, because I do 30 minutes a week with each of my reps, because I'm talking about their trip home. How were the holidays? Oh, you saw your brother and your nieces and nephew. Like, I just get so ingrained in those real talks, and I'm like, oh geez, we have 7 minutes left and we haven't talked any shop. So real quick, let's pull up your KPIs. Let's see how you're performing. But that's okay, as long as it's not, of course, every single time. But when you really truly know these people and they get to know you, because I've had some leaders where, yes, they're interested in me, but they don't share anything about themselves. And then you're like, geez, well, what are you hiding? Like, do you not want me to know your son plays soccer? Maybe I resonate with that. So again, just being really open and honest, I think, is what not only builds trust, but it's going to, turn into that motivation. And again, back to that intentional part is, if you do not try at this, then you're going to completely fail, because you have to think about what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, and how it's going to land with the results that you want. So that way you can, again, get to know your reps, and then you know how to pump them up when things are down. Because we went through that a lot, I would say, in June. We had what I'm calling the trifecta of issues, where we relaunched our version of Salesforce, which was much needed. We had some sequencing issues on top of our API issues. So my team was at a standstill, and we just motivated through it. I was like, it's okay. What's in our control and what's not? And when we really focused on that, we knew we were in it together, and we got through it and overcame everything the week after that fiasco.
Great. So that kind of leads what I wanted to go into next with, when your reps, or when you see them struggling, or they're going through challenging times, or they come to you and there's something challenging going on with them, what strategies for them to stay motivated do you share with them? Do you have like any tips that you give them, or is that kind of all based on, what they're going through?
So this can be tips either for a manager having the conversation, or this can be tips for the actual person to self-diagnose. So whenever you're feeling uncertain if things are going well, if they're not, you have to stop in your tracks and without hesitation, write down what's on your mind. If you're feeling nervous, jot down what comes to mind. I don't care what it is. If it's personal, professional, anything, jot down what's stressing you out. But then also let's focus on things that are going really well, because when you can visualize what the root cause, that's what's going to help you overcome it. Because it might be, I have 100 tasks, there's only an hour left, and I don't know if I'm going to make all these phone calls. Okay, let's figure out a game plan for that. But if you're going to be really stressed because of something outside of work, okay, let's pause work for a second. Let's kind of have our little therapy break. Let's disconnect. Let's shake it off. And then when your mind is refocused, let's go back into work. Because one thing that drives me nuts is when certain people, because I've had leaders like this in the past where they're like, oh, leave your personal life at the door. When you show up to work, you're working. And then same thing when you log off for work. Oh, leave work at the door. Now you're family. You're home with your family. You're one person. How can you act like you live two independent lives? So they are very much intertwined, and you have to balance out both sides to just be the best version of yourself.
Yeah, it's not Severance. I don't know if you guys have watched that show on Apple TV at all. It's
No, I haven't.
It's really good. I think it's Adam Scott that's in it, but it's basically like this company where they develop this I'm trying to think about what it would be. It's like a procedure, I guess.
Okay.
Where when you're at work, you forget everything about your personal life. Like your slate is wiped clean.
Oh, wow.
But you remember everything at work from like your previous day, your previous weeks. You remember everything. When you leave the building, you forget everything you just did. So the point is they're trying to make it like, oh, like that way your work doesn't impact your home life and your home doesn't impact your work life. But of course it causes chaos because you're one person and your identity is in who you are across all lives you live, right? Like you're one person, but you're also multitudes. So I feel like
I'm gonna have to watch that.
Yeah, it's really good. I would highly recommend. We are not sponsored. Just gonna throw that out there by Apple TV. I wish. But yeah, I would definitely like recommend watching that because it's the same thing. Like I feel like I used to have a lot of that mentality where like I want to separate myself. I want to separate my work-life balance. But then that's not balance. That's like a teeter-totter. So I was trying to think like connecting with people on your team, connecting with people that you work with, connecting with clients outside of just being clients, like things like that really do, I think, almost empower you and keep you motivated because you care about the people you're working with. You care about the people that you're connecting with every day. Yeah.
And I will say, I feel like my perspective is it's changed a bit since we've all gone so remote since the pandemic. I feel like flexibility and allowing employees to take care of what they need to is important so much more now that we're remote than it was in the past when, school was canceled, you're playing mom, manager, you were doing it all. And I do love that a lot of that has stuck, even though the world is a little bit of a better place than when the pandemic first started. But that's really what it's going to matter because you can be going through something challenging, but that doesn't mean that you can't perform at your job. It just might mean for this week, for this month even, this one person, they are going through it. Give them a little bit of an extra leash because if you do that, when they're ready and back to their true self, they're going to bounce back so strong because they know you had my back. I appreciated the time and I value you. So let me prove to you how hard of a worker, as opposed to if it was no leash, they'd be like, wow, like you don't care that I'm really stressed out right now. And a job is replaceable. Nobody's forcing anybody to be here. And that's where people can you can see that turnover. If you don't feel that you're valued for your personal life, I'd walk. Absolutely. I'd walk.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I totally agree.
So I think that's one thing that I love about Stacy, especially, is she's one of the only employers that I've worked for that does value us on a personal level as well as in a work environment.
Mm-hmm. That's so important.
Yeah, it really is.
Awesome. So all of that to say, can you give us a few practical tips for women to thrive in the sales industry?
Yes. So let your personality shine. I mean, I know, again, this isn't necessarily women specific, but if you're bubbly and conversational and friendly, bring all of that out. Do not hide yourself. And it's okay. Be authentic. That's what people want more than ever. I feel like often people want to shield who they are and don't. It's funny. I start every interview that I ever go on and I go, listen, I'm going to be unlike every single interview you've ever had because I'm going to be the same way with you as I am with my team in one-on-ones. Because to be frank, if you don't like how I am or my personality, I'd rather you figure that out now. I'm not going to fake who I am because this is who I am. You like it or love it or hate it or leave it, whatever. But I think that's something that all women need to know. It is okay. And some people might not agree with this, but it's fine if you curse. I'm a really big cursor, and I should tone it down at times. I'm behaving myself today, but it's okay.
You're allowed to. When you said
Like,
earlier, I was dying.
oh yeah, no, but it's so funny though, because if that's who you are, like, that's fine. They actually say that you're more trustworthy if you curse. And I even remember when I interviewed for Rocket Reach, my CEO dropped an F-bomb, and I was like, this is where I need to work. This is great. But I'm getting distracted here, but just always be your authentic self, because if somebody doesn't appreciate that, they don't deserve you. I would say be kind to yourself. We touched on this, but women, we beat ourselves up if, what do we look like? How are we presenting ourselves? Did we answer that question right? You know what? Whether you did or you didn't, if you learn from it, that is okay. Nobody ever expects perfection. And if they do, they're an unrealistic human being. So be kind to yourself. And I would also say have a lot of self-reflection. Because if, say, you had a call that went it was tough. My team, they do cold calls. Sometimes they're rough. Think about if there's anything you could have done. Was it in your control? Let's improve on it. But if it's outside of your control, such as the person's reaction, do not get it out of your head. Don't give it a second thought and move on. And let's not fester on it. Let's just really move forward. And also, say you have the best call ever. That's a win. Let's focus on it. What made that the best call ever? How did you overcome that objection? What things did you do? Celebrate that, because even if you didn't get the meeting, if you got information or you overcame those objections, that is a win. Let's focus on that, because I think women also I sometimes do. You don't want to share the good stories, because then it's, oh, are you coming off arrogant? Are you bragging? Are you being too much? No, it's not what you say. It's how you say it. So celebrate yourself and advocate for yourself, because if you don't, who's going to? Might be no one. So you have to be your best friend, your best advocate, and your best person to support you. So that's really something that I wish I knew a little bit longer ago. And then the last thing I will say is, if you want something, fight for it. Maybe you are not getting help in an area that you desperately need. Find a mentor. You would be so surprised, if you follow people on LinkedIn that you really value them, look up to them, admire them. If you send them a message, hey, listen, I really loved your post about X, Y, and Z. This is something I'm struggling with. Could you spare 15 minutes, 30 minutes to just have a chat? I would say 90% of the time, the people that you reach out to will say yes. I just think a lot of people are scared to ask because they're scared of rejection. Fuck rejection. There you go. I said it. Who cares? That's all a mental state. Don't let it bother you, but seek the advice and fight for what you're looking for. Because again, you're your own army, and you have to fight for yourself first and put yourself out there.
100%. I was just thinking, like, how many times have I, even today, emailed someone and then deleted my exclamation marks and replaced them with periods, or had to remove my I'm sorry because I kept saying, sorry if you already knew this, sorry, does this make sense? Like, I definitely can catch myself in emails, particularly like, why am I changing my entire personality? Why am I questioning myself in an email? Like, I'm emailing because I have the information or because I have a request. I feel like sometimes we can get ourselves in that bubble. Am I coming across too, like, excited, or am I not excited enough? Am I worthy enough to be asking this question? Is this a dumb question? But we do tend to get ourselves, I think, in a little bit of a bubble. So we know what we're talking about.
Yeah. And I love that I love that you said that, because how often do we apologize for things we shouldn't have to apologize for? And this is where I will call out somebody I very much admire, who is a confidence coach, is Heather Monahan. And something that really stuck out in her content was how she used to, if she was a couple minutes late for a meeting, she'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry I'm late. And she cut that from her vocabulary and now says, thank you so much for waiting. Yes, so it's small alterations in first your mindset for what comes out of your mouth to avoid that. Because how many times is it, I should, I could, I wish, I'm trying, well, like, no, we don't have to make excuses. We just need to keep it to the facts. And that's where you should feel really confident in what you're saying without the, I'm sorry. No. What are you sorry for? Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't have to be.
Yeah, it's definitely like a tricky one to cut out of that.
I know. Well, it takes intention. I know I'll do this with my reps. I'll listen to recordings and I'll sit there with a tally and I'll be like, did you know that you said 47 times? Like, no, I didn't. I'm like, you did. And then that's what helps improve is you got to self-reflect.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, I'm even worse at the sorry because I'm Canadian. So I say I'm sorry all the time.
I say I'm sorry a lot too, but I have, because I've heard the replacing the I'm sorry with thank you for. So I do try to do that, but it can be difficult still to not like revert back to constantly apologizing. Again, it goes back to that like perfection thing. So we so much want to be perfectionists as women, not all women, but of course most of us. So if I disappoint someone immediately, I'm like, I'm so sorry, instead of thank you for understanding, thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really the mindset that we should be taking.
Yeah, because again, I think women do it. I can't, not saying it hasn't happened, but I can't think of men that I've worked for who overly apologize. Everything's fine with them. Yes. So why do we put pressure on ourselves when the men aren't?
Especially if it's like something where it's not even like a mistake. It's like an area for improvement. Like, oh, let's do this next time. I feel like we jump into, oh, I'm sorry, I'll do it differently. Instead of just, oh, got it. We'll move forward. Like, message received. But I feel like we have this innate need to be like, I'm so sorry that I unknowingly screw that up when we didn't even have that precedent set yet. Like, why am I apologizing for something that I've known about, right? But I totally do it. I do it all the time.
Mm-hmm. So catch yourself. So my advice for you, before those words, when they're stuck in your throat, the back of your throat, about to come out, pause and then don't do it. Keep it back there and then remember, thank you for your patience. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for the feedback.
Yes, exactly. Love that.
All right, awesome. Let's shift a little bit into sales and marketing alignments. So one of the big things at Uncommon Marketing Works is really aligning sales and marketing teams. So can you explain, from your point of view, the significance of sales and marketing alignment for business success?
Yes. So should we call it smarketing? I love when people call it smarketing. So, no, I'm making jokes here. I can't speak enough to the importance of this because marketing supports sales wholeheartedly. Your success is our success is your success. And what I hate most is the finger pointing. And that's something that if this relationship isn't solid to its core, you are going to be up against each other. There's going to be resentment. There's going to be tension and things are going to fizzle. Because the perfect example is, I'm in the SDR world, right? Oh, the leads suck. It's marketing's fault. And then guess what? The AEs are going to point to the SDR. Well, your opportunities suck and I'm not winning. Like, no, we are not doing the blame game. Everybody has to have such a good understanding and appreciation for what everybody is doing because nobody is going to intentionally sabotage you. Why would you do that? So kind of don't be an asshole about it, right? Mm-hmm. So my perspective for sales and marketing is they should know what each other are doing. So I should know what campaigns are running. What are you guys focusing on for branding versus lead gen versus email support? Because I think people, honestly, a lot of sales reps don't understand what marketing does. And that's where people turn to the wrong folks for the wrong information. So whether it's a biweekly sync, a monthly sync, what are you guys doing? So that way I have a really good understanding. And then from the other side, is the feedback loop of, oh, this is what I'm seeing. The leads from this channel, they are fantastic. Let's find more lookalikes. These ones seem kind of 50-50. Let's keep testing it out. But you know what? This bucket from this source, it's not working out. Without that feedback and honesty, how does marketing know to improve, to make sales better? And then also let's look at the win rates, right? Where are objections coming up more? What's happening afterwards with everything that marketing is generating? So that way, again, we can put money where it should be spent, cut it where it shouldn't. But if there's not that honest, open feedback loop and it's the tension, those conversations aren't going to happen. And it's always going to be, let me tell you everything I think you're doing wrong. No. Not going to happen where I work.
So obviously we've been talking a lot about like collaboration and connecting with your team, connecting with other women. So how do you foster a collaborative and supportive environment within a partnership that you're working with to like keep that human connection?
So it's all going to start with very clear expectations. And that could be as far as responsibilities, things that, you are responsible for, but also things that you're not responsible for. So that way there is, again, a line in the sand of what people are capable of delivering and what they're not. So that's going to be one step of it. And also setting expectations. If I slack you, what is an appropriate time to follow up if I haven't heard from you? Or if you're maybe more email heavy, if I haven't heard from you after how long, like, when can I annoy you again? Because I really need that information. So I think that's really important to understand for just that communication style. And also, do you prefer Slack or a quick Zoom? Like for me, I prefer, let me jump on a Zoom. I'd rather have a 5-minute conversation speaking than slacking. But you can't always do that. So again, just clear expectations on communication and responsibilities. And you also need to have a scheduled time to meet, and you can't break it unless there's an emergency. And if you do have to break that schedule and that cadence, just reschedule that meeting for another time so nothing gets skipped. So again, every organization has to pick what works best, but how often should, say, sales management and marketing management, how often should they meet? How often should we loop in individual contributors so that way you get feedback from the actual reps who are on that front line doing the work? How often do we talk about, the game plan? What's going live that's working? What is in the building phase? What's going to be on your roadmap? How can we hold each other accountable, but still have a lot of fun doing it? So I think that with those expectations, that's where you're going to just naturally foster that type of meeting. Because or just again, like the relationship, because how many meetings have you had where the first couple ones, you're really serious, you get to business, but then after you guys have such a good established relationship, now the first 5 minutes, you're going to joke a little bit more. How are you? Oh, geez, last week was a little messy. Let's make it better this week, right? If you can bring a little bit of levity and joy after you have that relationship, that's only going to make it last even further. So those are just a couple of things off the top of my head, but also be a good human. Like, I shouldn't have to say this. Don't be an asshole. Like, remember what can you control, what can you not, and just be very conscious of how you feel somebody's going to hear you. And I know that can be tricky, but I think it's so quick. Like I do it sometimes where I joke I speak Jill. So my team, they know I'm like, I'm always typos. My nails are really long. So I misspell things. Autocorrect crushes me. And there's times I'm like, oh, I kind of sounded rude. And I'm like, I'm really sorry. Like I just kind of barked that at you, completely not how I meant for it to land. I hope that's not how you felt, because I moved too quickly, and my team's they usually joke. They're like, yeah, I speak Jill. It's fine. I know you didn't mean it. But, owning those moments where perhaps you just weren't your best self, even if, it landed the way you didn't want it. So I don't know, just be a good human, treat people with kindness. I sound like a loser. Be intentional and just make good choices. You know how you should behave, how you can build relationships. So just put your money where your mouth is. Be a good person.
I definitely agree. I feel like we have this, especially when you're starting a working relationship with somebody new. I feel like it's very easy to have this like, okay, I need to put myself on, like I need to be on, because this is like, this is the line here. This is where it's going to be a little bit of like a slippery slope. And then, within a few days, a few meetings, you're like, all right, you're a human that also watches Netflix and like sits on the couch and relaxes at the end of the day and has their phone go off, like especially things like phones going off or something. You're like, oh yeah, sorry.
I can't remember who it was that we last well, it wasn't the last person that we onboarded, but we had someone new starting, and normally I do try to make myself look presentable when a new employee is starting. Well, I was sick, so I was like, I'm so sorry, I don't normally look like this, but this is me, this is how I am, I'm not feeling well, but welcome to the team. They were like, oh, you look fine, it's fine.
It makes life easier when you present yourself as, hi, I'm a human, I'm not a robot. Like, I know AI is everything, but we are also humans. We're going to have flaws, and I feel like it's easy to kind of put other people on a pedestal when you're like, it's going back to that like self-deprecating thing a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, like I have to be perfect in this meeting, and I can't read my notes. I can't like share the wrong screen or, things like that. But then you remember, oh, well, they probably shared the wrong screen last week, and They've probably had their phone go off in a meeting, and they've probably
I
had,
know.
their internet shut down halfway through. Like it happens. I think humanizing each other honestly just builds better working relationships.
Yeah, because nobody, like I was saying, nobody is perfect, and you just have to find those common interests, because I would rather waste 5 minutes of every single half-hour meeting I have focusing on something common that we can relate to so we build a stronger bond than to not do that. And it's funny, I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, the company I was at, we were working with this awful sales trainer. And he had way too much power and authority. And I will never forget, we got pulled on a leadership meeting, and he goes, everybody's working from home and I don't like this environment. So if you have kids, lock them out of your room. I don't want to see cats, dogs. I don't want to hear sounds. And of course, my cat jumps on my lap. And I was like, oh my God, he just said that I'm not allowed to have my pet here. And now my cat's on my lap. And it's like, no. Who cares? If that happened to me now, I'd be like, oh my God, what's your cat's name? Do you have a dog? Oh my God, what other, like, who cares? Find that common interest, because we're all, especially remote, like, who knows where your office space is?
Yeah.
Find that, like, find the jokes and the fun in things are not how they used to be. Embrace it and just love it. Like, that's where even at the beginning of this call, I'll call myself out. I was like, oh, am I on camera? Let me take the sheet off of the bed behind me, because that's where my cat sleeps. And there's definitely hair on it. But the first thing I did is let me take it off so that way I seem more presentable. And I should have just left it, right? Who cares? But just find those common interests.
Yeah, totally agree. Especially because, like, myself, my cat jumps in my camera every 5 minutes. I can't remember the last time I had a meeting. I'm not at home right now. I'm at Harley's house, but I can't remember the last time I had a meeting where I wasn't, like, holding my dog's toy while she's pulling it. And I'm like,
I love it.
you can probably attest to that. I was like, sure, yeah, okay. Like, listening. She's just, like, gurring in the background. And
I know.
who doesn't want to see a fluffy dog?
I would love
Someone
it.
told me not to have pets in a meeting. I'd be like, well, too bad. This is their house, not yours.
Yes.
So
Yes.
they're
Yes.
gonna be in the
I love that.
background.
Yes. And again, it doesn't make you any less of an employee if you have a cute little puppy at your feet
Exactly.
versus trying to be a robot, how we used to behave in an office where there was no fun.
Oh my gosh, I'll never forget, like, the amount of, especially, like, since we're fully remote too, I'll never forget, like, I would be so concerned about, I have to be back in 15 minutes, so I look like I'm working, and I'm like, well, yeah, you are working. You're allowed to have a little lunch break, like, but now
You're allowed
I'm
to get up and go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
You're allowed to take a walk outside quick.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can take a minute, take breath of fresh air. Like, it really, remote life is
The
my
best
love.
life.
We love it.
Same.
So
Same.
good.
All right, awesome. Well, Jill, this has been fantastic. If our listeners wanted to find you on social, where should we send them?
So I am very big on LinkedIn. So find me, connect with me, send me a message, reference this podcast so that way you don't get lost in all the messages I get. I promise I will get back to you. My name, let me see. Am I Jill or Jillian? I forget this every time. All right, just Jill Bruno. Very easy. Jill Bruno, Bruno. Find me and I would love to connect. And if you guys need anything, please let me pay it forward to you. Don't hesitate to reach out with a question. Maybe there was something that we didn't touch on today, or maybe you want me to touch on it a bit more. I don't care. Let me help you. So reach out to me.
Amazing. And then, why don't you take on
I guess I have the big question. So, what is your favorite cocktail or mocktail at the moment?
Oh, cocktail, not mocktail. And definitely, I would say I'm on a big vodka soda kick. If it's not vodka, it's coffee. If it's not coffee, it's water. But definite, beverage of choice, lemon and lime, preferably lemon flavored seltzer with 2 shots of vodka. That's my drink.
Love it.
Do you have a preferred vodka?
So I would say it depends on how I'm feeling. I love Grey Goose. Maybe I'm a little bougie. Grey Goose, I would say Belvedere. I'll settle for Tito's. No, I'll settle for anything, but I would say if I have my choice, probably Grey Goose.
Okay, awesome.
What about you guys? What are you drinking?
Ooh, my big thing right now is, so I love Aperol spritzes, but I feel like I was just having them, like, as my cocktail every time I'd have one. I got kind of not sick of them, but I want to switch it up. So I'm going to plug this brand. I think it's called Lemonade, like, supposed to be like lemonade. But they do low sugar, lower alcohol aperitifs. And that's mainly like just so I can't do too much sugar. Like I feel like I get like if I do too much. So I've been mixing a little bit of their Meyer lemon aperitif with a little bit of sparkling water and then a little bit of champagne. So that's been my like when I'm feeling fancy cocktail.
Yeah, for me this summer, I'm more of a beer girl in the summer. And I really love like sour beers. That's my thing. But like maybe cocktail wise, I mean vodka soda is, I feel it's just like such a good one, and mojitos.
I was gonna say though, you do need to talk about the name of your favorite beer right now.
So the name of my favorite beer, my favorite sour beer currently, it's by Duclaw Brewing Company, and it's called Unicorn Farts. And it has glitter in it. And it's brewed with like Fruit Loop type cereal. But it's very, very good. And it's very pretty.
Ooh, that's awesome. I'll have to try it.
One time in the summer, a friend of mine, we were getting sour beers and she got a cucumber one. We're like, oh, that sounds so refreshing, like cucumber. We were thinking, and then after when we started drinking it, we're like, oh wait, cucumber, sour, pickles. Straight up pickle beer. We're like, that's pickles. Yeah.
Oh wow. I feel like drinks are so fun now.
Mm-hmm.
There's the alcoholic, the iced teas that are dangerously good, all the seltzers. It's a good world to have a beverage out there.
Awesome.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much.
No problem. It was nice meeting you guys.
Yeah,
nice meeting you too.
Thanks for joining us on this week's episode. Tune in next time for another special guest and, of course, more cocktails.
Don't forget to grab your favorite drink and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Marketing Mixologist Pod.
Cheers.